Hello, welcome to the Geekly. I am Jules.
I'm Lex.
I want to talk to you quickly about the Joker film. I said before it came out, I don't expect there to be a sequel, but if it goes past $750 million, I think the likelihood of a sequel will go up considerably. 55 million budget, it's a 750 there or thereabouts million dollars now, worldwide. Yeah, your thoughts on that?
The last thing we need is a sequel to Joker. I mean, we didn't even need Joker, and we got it. And, it has its pluses and stuff, but I don't really see what more a sequel could do.
Neither do I. But
I mean, it would just be like Joker killing people, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would bring Batman into it. The way Joker is structured, the way it's set up, it's not really conducive to a sequel.
That is absolutely correct. But it's made 10 times its budget, and that is all people care about. I think Warner Brothers are looking at it thinking, hot damn, that's money on the table, let's talk trilogy. I think that's probably what's going to happen. I wish there wasn't. I wish it would just remain as this one film. The amount of money it's made, I doubt that's going to happen.
One of the reasons why it's made so much money is the controversy around it. People want to see what everybody's talking about. And I imagine that a good portion of those people who went to see Joker probably wouldn't go see a sequel to it. I mean, that's what happens when films get talked about a lot and are in the media and there's a lot of scrutiny around them. People go see it, put their money down, but they're not necessarily interested in what the film is about. They just want to, experience what everybody's talking about. And they've done that now, so I can't see. So I imagine that if they did a sequel, it probably would not make nearly as much money.
Okay, let's talk about Watchmen. What did you make of this? The TV show nobody really wanted. TV show we probably didn't need. More continuity set in the Watchmen universe. But here it is.
I was very confused by the whole thing, to be honest. I kept trying to frame it in the Watchmen universe, and aside from Dr. Manhattan appearing on a news article and the Rorschach masks, it didn't really seem to have any sort of connection to Watchmen whatsoever. It could be kind of any sort of dystopian society that's super regulated. There were a lot of elements of the world building that just weren't explained, that I felt kind of needed to be explained. We needed to be grounded in what kind of world this was. We had the 1921 Tulsa scene, and it was why are we watching that? What's going on? What's happening? We got none of those answers. Then it jumped to the present day, and apparently the main cop lady that we're going to follow, I'm presuming she's going to be the protagonist of the show, just based on how it's been set up so far. We find out that was her father, but what's the significance of that? Yeah, I came away with a lot of questions that I really wanted to have answered in the first episode that just weren't addressed.
As a show, I thought it was quite interesting. I quite enjoyed her. I don't know what business this show has of calling itself Watchmen.
I guess that's kind of my thing. I kept trying to tell myself, just watch it as a show separate from Watchmen and look at it that way. And if you look at it as separate from Watchmen, having nothing to do with the Watchmen universe, it's an interesting premise. It has a lot of potential in it. I still would have liked a little bit more world building, but the connection to Watchmen just leaves me very confused.
There is a romance to the Watchmen kind of graphic novel, the idea of them. I didn't feel that it particularly worked well in contemporary society. As a show, this is something that I would consider watching a little bit more of, but if it wasn't called Watchmen, would I have watched it to begin with? Probably not.
See, I probably would have, because I get into dystopian societies, so if this show came up, completely different name, they kind of gave me this premise that there's a society where the police wear masks and there's some sort of terrorist group acting out. Yeah, I probably would have checked it out. Most of my interest was because it's named Watchmen. There's not really anybody to root for in this, because on the one hand you have the police, which wear masks, which is just a terrifying concept, and then on the other hand you have the white supremacist group wearing the Rorschach masks, which again is another terrifying prospect. And these are the two camps you're given of who to root for, and it's just sort of I'm not really a fan of either group.
Like you said, there could have been a bit more world building. What we were given was quite interesting though. Like you said, the police wear masks, and it's not something to be celebrated, being a police officer. It's something very much kept on the down low. People's families know, but they're all sworn to secrecy. They said he was doing night school. He was doing engineering in night school, which I found really interesting, because it's very much not necessarily in England, but the perception in America is very much something to be celebrated, in a similar way to maybe being part of the army. Not everyone would agree with that, but that's how it's always seemed to me. But the thing I found most interesting was that the police need to have authorization to take the guns out of the little holsters in their car.
I really like that concept.
Yeah, me too.
I think it would be a really useful concept for police in the United States to have, that they have to have authorization before they can pull their weapons.
Yeah.
I was a bit disappointed that in this context it was framed as a bad thing, because obviously the cop gets murdered because he can't get his gun out. But I definitely think that some restraint and some checks and balances on when police officers use their weapons is certainly necessary. Likewise, that like when they had the meeting and about whether or not to use deadly force against the Rorschach group, was the cavalry, they called them. You had the one kind of dissenting voice saying, this is not right, and then the police kind of doing their like extreme reaction thing of like, yeah, I feel threatened. Yeah, I like that concept.
Yeah. I like this episode. I honestly thought I wouldn't. I thought, it's got the Watchmen branding. Did we need to reawaken that sleeping Goliath branding? I kind of wish they hadn't in some respects. As the episodes go on, they may introduce bigger, better Watchmen kind of concepts that might catch my interest. So yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to see more. But the debate rages on about whether this should have been called Watchmen or its own thing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what comes further down the line and if they incorporate more Watchmen elements into it. But at the moment, I would say this does not feel like a Watchmen show. Maybe like a Watchmen-inspired show, but not something that warrants being called Watchmen. Like they probably should have titled it something else, and maybe just had like a little line in the credits inspired by the Watchmen universe.
Yeah.
Do you think that American Horror Story has run its course?
I believe that it should be... I know it was the people who've made its child and they still are everything to do with it, producers, director or whatever. I believe it should be handed over to entirely new people. I believe it can continue, but not under their stewardship, if that makes sense. I believe there are infinite good stories that still could be told, but I believe these people... And even
so they need an injection of new ideas, basically.
I know that the main guy has been signed by Netflix for like 300 million to do loads of shows for them. I know he does American Crime Story, which is very good. It may be time for him to pass this over to other people and say, this is my gift to the world. I've done what I can with it. Please take the ball and run with it. That's what I would like. So I don't believe the show needs to necessarily end, but I believe it needs an entirely new energy to it. What would you say to the same question?
I think I would agree with you on that. I think part of me thinks that stepping away from the same cast every season has not been in its benefit. That was kind of one of the charming aspects of American Horror Story, was that you got to see these characters play multiple different roles, sometimes within the same season. There was a lot of connectivity between the two of them. There was this whole idea that there was this sort of supernatural horror universe where all of these different things were happening. And I feel like the past few seasons have been a bit tepid and unambitious. When you think about things like Murder House or Asylum, they were quite ambitious story arcs. They encompassed a lot of concepts, and they made good use of a lot of horror tropes, which is difficult to do because, I mean, with them being tropes, we obviously are programmed to expect them. Whereas, particularly in this season, they've used a lot of tropes, but not to good effect. I would be interested to see an injection of some new ideas, some fresh content into American Horror Story, and maybe like change it up a little bit.
So finally, the long night is over. Dawn has finally arrived.
It kind of ended.
Everybody's pretty much dead except Brooke. Margaret is trying to has told the police that Brooke went crazy and killed all these people. Margaret's in the wind. Brooke's being sent to jail.
Mr. Jingles and Ramirez are on a road trip, I guess.
My question to you simply is what happens next?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
The episode ended and I just thought, like, is there where's the rest of the season going to go from here?
It's the old American Horror Story episode 5. So I'm not going to call it the switcheroo because they are going to continue in this kind of style of storytelling. It's not like a Roanoke where we're getting something entirely different, which I hoped would be the case. We're just following these characters now in the daytime. And if this becomes a Jingles Ramirez buddy film, I'm not going to be into that. And if it also becomes all the ghosts who can't leave Camp Redwood, Much like Murd House, much like Hotel Ramirez, not Hotel Ramirez, Hotel Cortez, they cannot leave now. Their ghosts are probably going to be there forever. I hope it's not them just pissing campers off forever and Mr. Jingles and Ramirez buddy movie forever. That doesn't interest me in the slightest, if I'm being really blunt about it. I don't know what comes next, much like you. If we have to have an episode of this, those two stories, so be it. But I need something far more.
I think even an episode of ghosts fucking with campers and the serial killer buddy film would be too much. I mean, to be honest, I'm been kind of bored with this season. Like, yeah. I came into it with really high hopes, thought it was going to be, at the very least, you know, some good jump scares. Like, I was watching the episode, and it was basically just, you know, every episode has essentially been people running around in the woods, bursting into a cabin, slamming a door, running back out into the woods, and there hasn't been a lot of variety there. There hasn't even been a huge number of kills. We haven't had a lot of surprises. The kind of quote-unquote surprises we have had, we very easily called them well in advance, so it's questionable whether or not they can actually be counted as surprises. It feels like the writers haven't left themselves anywhere to go from here. Like, anywhere interesting, anyway.
I think the name American Horror Story buys them 3 episodes of goodwill from me. I'll give them 3, no matter what the context is, what the season's about. I'll watch the first 3, and then after that, they'll have to have kind of done something to keep me interested. They didn't really this time around. The idea of it being the same night told over multiple episodes, I wasn't really that into. But okay, you know, I live in hope that there will be this mid-season switcheroo and something else will evolve from it. And I don't think we've got that either.
There's nothing really compelling about it this season that to draw you in and be like, oh yeah, I really want to know what happens next. Like, particularly with this episode, because it felt very much like a full ending. Like, everything was sort of tied up. Brooke is being taken off to jail. Margaret has been successful in framing another person. The 2 serial killers just ran off. I mean, there's the whole implication that Ramirez was brought back by Satan and given, like, all of this knowledge about stuff, but they didn't really do anything with that. Like, he had this whole kind of supernatural resurrection thing, and that was kind of it. So yeah, I'm kind of underwhelmed with this season.
Yeah, same. Couple of points. I would say the Chet death is probably my favourite death of the season. Margaret tying like an anchor around his ankle, throwing him into the water. I was really into that one.
Well, you've been waiting for him to die since the beginning. So. Since
the beginning, and the fact that they brought Ray back was very annoying to me. Him and Brooke had slept together, which I think, in a narrative sense, was...
I'm kind of wondering if they're going to do the murder house demon baby thing again.
Me too. That's exactly where I was going. Is she now carrying an antichrist? But those two partnering up and having sex, they thought it was like their last night on this earth, fair enough, but I wasn't into that at all. And Ray, after being such an absolute shit in the last episode, leaving people to die, being rescued by Chet, then leaving Chet to die, I just wanted him to be written out. I didn't want him coming back.
My problem with it is the problem I always have with scenes like this, where you have a television show or a movie and you have 2 characters, typically a man and a woman, who are kind of isolated in one area. Their lives are in danger. Like, they don't know this, but there are actually 3 serial killers running around this camp and they have no idea where they are. They could come up on them at any point, and their solution is like, oh, hey, let's have sex, because that's what you want. Like, I mean, you're in your most vulnerable position during sex, and it's obviously just to throw a scene in there to get the audience's attention, and it drives me crazy every time they do this.
What happens next is anyone's guess. I've seen the episode 6 little teaser. People are suggesting they could be going to the Hotel Cortez, which, okay, that could interest me. I believe Ramirez was in the Hotel Cortez during the season of Hotel.
Yeah, he was, because he was there for that dinner.
Dinner of the serial killers, yeah. So, I mean, okay, that could pique my interest. I did enjoy the Hotel season, but I've got no interest, really, in what they've shown me. What were your thoughts on Titans this week?
Dick's hallucination of Bruce Wayne is the only version of Bruce Wayne in Titans that I've actually enjoyed. Although, I'm beginning to... Well, not beginning to. I'm continuing to question their casting of that role.
I think he should have been cast as Alfred.
Yeah, I think he did great when he was like mocking Alfred.
Absolutely.
It would have been much better, and I think it probably would have been maybe more accurate that Alfred was sort of the kind of nurturing paternal figure rather than Bruce Wayne. You know, in season 1, whenever Dick got in trouble, he called Alfred. He didn't talk to Bruce. And then we had the weird buddy moment between Dick and Bruce where like Bruce was acting very affectionate and caring, which just seemed out of character for him. So I would think that if anybody was going to be Dick's moral compass, it would be Alfred rather than Bruce, particularly given Dick's kind of resentment towards Bruce and at Batman by extension.
Yeah. I mean, to me, this Bruce was very much in the vein of the buddy conversation we had several episodes ago. I don't obviously recognise Bruce in this interpretation by Ian Glenn. I know it's a mental manifestation or projection from Dick, but Dick knows him better than anyone, so I thought it would be kind of more in line with what you and I would assume to be the kind of prime Bruce Wayne. It made me wonder whether Dick lives his whole life seeing Bruce here and there and everywhere. I know he's having a particular mental break at the moment, but I just wonder whether that happens more often than just this particular period of time. The one thing I did like was one of the greatest Easter eggs in all of Batman that happened when Bruce Wayne was dancing with the burlesque dancers, and he did Adam West's, I think it's called Bat 2Z, audio medium, difficult to describe. He did the Adam West Batman dance during that, which was absolutely sensational. But everything about the Bruce Wayne we've had during the whole of this season, I'm just not into it. And that's probably not going to change at this point. And I really think, like you said, Alfred was the one he called. That was his moral compass. Ian Glenn would have been a great Alfred.
Yeah.
I cannot.
He wouldn't have had to do an American accent either.
Absolutely. I can't get past that. I've tried, but I can't get past it. A question for you. Did we need any of the elements from the Connor episode to bleed over into this episode, such as Eve?
I think her sole purpose was to get Crypto to Connor. That was basically her function. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with her character next or how she fits into the whole Titans ensemble. The
bit that she was involved with that was great was Corey using her radiation to bring Connor back from this kryptonite poisoning, which was fantastic. But the thing that really bugged me was, okay, so Rachel can use her powers now. She's completely in control of her powers. She did what they asked her to do. The end. She can never have any more issues with her powers because she was awake, she wasn't dreaming, and she used them perfectly. So that they cannot have that's done now. There cannot be any more regression with that problem.
You know there will be, though.
I know there will be, yeah, and that's why I'm going to always bring this moment back, because they shouldn't have done it if she's going to have problems with it in the future. That's one of those narrative things that will happen and really piss me off. I asked you the question about Eve because this week in Titan's Tower we had Dick, Hank, Dawn, Corey, Wonder Girl, Gar, Rachel, Jason, Rose, the projection of Bruce, Connor, Eve, and Crypto. And for the first time, I felt that the cast was too big in this episode. We had this one little line from Gar where he opened a door. Rachel popped in to do this kind of thing with her powers. I think we're now at critical mass. I think it was the first time where I felt like the episode suffered from having too many people being kind of thrown in for a minute here and a minute there.
I think Gar was the one that stood out for me in particular because, like you said, he just opened the door and he had one line, and aside from that, he was pretty much just standing around in a room with everybody. You know, they just sort of like brought Rachel in without, the last time we saw Rachel, she was having a lot of trouble with her powers. She almost killed Jason with them. And in this episode, she is able to successfully use her powers to contain Corey, as you mentioned. But then she also goes up against Jason and sort of threatens him with her powers, but she doesn't lose control. So that, there are two instances where she's in complete control of her powers. And they haven't really shown us how that was resolved or how she got to that point. It would have been so simple when she was helping Corey for her to express some doubt and be like, my powers are still on the fritz. We don't know if this is going to work. And Corey to kind of be reassuring and sort of ground her and do that because they have a very sort of close relationship. But there was just no mention of her previous struggles with her powers at all. It was like we were supposed to forget that was happening. And I imagine that going forward, we're going to be expected to forget that this episode she had complete use of her faculties.
Absolutely right. I kind of wish Gar and Rachel would kind of run off together at this point, because we need to whittle down the people. I don't imagine they'll be killing anyone anytime soon, other than maybe Jason. They might decide that they want to do the Red Hood, but I think we're at the point where too many people. Interesting episode for Jason Todd.
I really enjoyed this episode for Jason's storyline.
I did as well, yeah.
We got to see kind of a different side to him. I thought they did it really well and made it really believable that, he's traumatized, but like he almost died. And, he mentions the fact that like he keeps falling, like he just stands there and stares out the window, and you see the floors going by in his eyes. And a lot of times in comic book shows and movies, they sort of bypass that. These people are in life-threatening situations, and they have some really close calls, but then they just get up and they keep going. And to show that like this really, really rocked Jason, and for that character out of everybody, he's kind of
full of bravado, the entire time.
And to see him at the point of tears a couple times, and be freaking out and about ready to actually jump off a building, it added a nice complexity to his character that I think only enhanced it.
It seems even Titans 1.0 don't know that Dick killed Jericho. Somehow he's held this secret the entire time, and he finally opens up to Jason. Next week, everybody's going to be told about that. And I thought it was really interesting where Rose found Jericho's vinyl, and she's like, Dick knew my brother, and she starts going a bit crazy trying to find out the truth. But that's going to be a real big emotional impact on the whole team next week. You imagine a lot of them are going to probably fall out over that. My question to you about Jason is, do you think, obviously all these shenanigans have been happening in the house, the bottle of brandy, was it, or bourbon or something, the orange whatever that Atlanteans and Amazonians drink, the crosses on the mirror, do you think that Slade Wilson has programmed Jason, and do you think Jason has suffered blackouts and he is actually the one that has done all of these things within Titan's Tower? Because it was or Rose, I would say, was the two options. And I don't know that it is Rose. I think a lot of people are going to maybe think that, but I just wonder if Slade Wilson, the time he had him, has kind of got into his head.
Well, that's a possibility that hadn't even occurred to me. I kind of went with what Dick said at face value, that Slade Wilson was in the tower somehow.
I just feel like with the horde of people that I mentioned, you feel like somebody would have seen him, but it's very possible. My two thoughts were Rose is actually playing them all, and she did it. And they are working together, her and her father, to get retribution for Jericho. But then I thought, how long did he have Jason for? Did he kind of get into his mind, kind of brainwash him slightly? And that's the one I'm slightly leaning more towards.
I don't know. I think because they had the whole team turn on Jason so quickly, and then, he had that moment with Dick, I think for it to then turn out that he actually did do the things and has been brainwashed by Slade Wilson, it just would have... It's the wrong sort of beat for the story to go. I mean, they might do that, but it sort of evaporates any tension and puts Jason back in this position, kind of undoes what has been accomplished in this episode by like kind of showing us his vulnerability and having him and Dick kind of really sort of connect for the first time. And if it turns out that he's been brainwashed and is actually doing all of these things, I'm not that into it.
Yeah. I'd say that's a fair point. I actually thought this is a really strong episode. I'm actually really enjoying Titans Series 2.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this season is great. I was a little bit nervous coming into it because you never really know how the second season is going to pan out. But yeah, I think all of the episodes have been fairly strong. I don't have a lot of complaints about this season. I'm just enjoying watching it.
Okay, should we move on to the Arrowverse?
Yeah, let's talk about the Arrowverse.
I think we're going to try something slightly different from now on with the Arrowverse. We're going to try and give the highlights and the lowlights without maybe going into such depth in each individual episode.
Basically, we're bored with Supergirl and the Flash, so we don't really want to talk about them.
I've got great news for you. There are 4 things, count them, 4 things I liked about this episode of Batwoman. We're finally in the decent suits. It's been a long time coming. When Kate is the focus, she is the best part of this show. My problem is more like when she's part of this kind of ensemble cast, which I don't particularly enjoy, but she's doing so well in these moments of solitude or when she's in the Batcave being Batwoman. I kind of hope that she does the Bruce Wayne thing where towards the end of the career he was barely Bruce Wayne. He was mostly just in the suit, mostly just Batman. So I kind of want her to lean sort of more towards that. The 6 out of 10 villain in this was more compelling, I felt, that Alice has ever been. Maybe 5 out of 10 villain, Tommy Elliott. He was largely villain of the week level, but he was the best like villainous element there has been so far. I thought I really enjoyed that, and his scheme involving dropping the lifts felt like a very respectable Adam West era Batman thing to deal with, and I think that's a very good thing for Batwoman to be dealing with in like her first 3 episodes. So instead of just running around chasing down Alice, beating up kind of goons, there was actually an area, there was a problem, and she dealt with it incredibly well in the proper outfit as well. So I enjoyed the 3rd act of this. It's obviously there's still a hell of a way to go, I think, to be up to kind of some of the villainous stakes we've had in some of the other shows. I've got a list of things I don't like as well.
All right, go for it.
The cast is too big. I don't want to hear any talk about jealous exes. That feels kind of more Supergirl. An example of that is Sophie not telling her husband that she's bi or about her past with Kate, and then Sophie becoming jealous.
I'm not really a huge fan of her ex's character.
No.
Like they haven't really given us much about her, so she comes across as very flat and 2-dimensional.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they're going to make this kind of an issue, or she's going to be part of Batwoman's inner circle, we need more about her. Like the stepsister or
Mary,
yeah.
I love her.
Yeah,
she's great.
She's great, and her character could very easily be a 2-dimensional character, but they've given her a lot of depth. She's a party girl who has this secret. She runs this underground clinic. She now has a 24/7 bodyguard. So how's she going to get to her secret illegal clinic? Yeah, they've added a lot of complexity to her, and her role in Batwoman's inner circle is kind of secured because she has the medical knowledge.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to Luke and his sort of tech knowledge. But the ex, she's really boring, and I want to be like, Kate, come on, you can do so much better than this.
I mean, my concern is that it's just going to be a running issue of the ex being jealous and then Kate being jealous and the husband obviously
being
hasn't
oblivious.
been told. Yeah, that's my big fear. Yeah, they're going to leave a big chunk of the show open to that, and it will get very boring very quickly. But I'm already bored with it. I just hope that they can resolve their differences very quickly, and I'm talking within the next 2 episodes. Okay, let's talk about Arrow. I was hoping that we'd get, the Trinity quantum leaping or Doctor Whoing through space and time, but episode 2 we're already back to Earth 1, which I was a little bit disappointed about. And if you're going to go to anywhere in Arrow's particular world, why would you go back to Hong Kong, which were the worst flashbacks of the entire Arrow TV show? I felt like his business was done in Hong Kong, and I don't know why he's back there.
I kind of enjoyed it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought this was a really strong episode. Watching it, I was just kind of thinking, I was comparing it, of course, to, some of the other Arrowverse shows that aren't doing so well, and it was just after 8 years, Arrow knows what it's doing. It knows how to deliver some great action sequences. It knows the characters. We get a little bit of fan service. I'm enjoying the plot arc with Laurel in it.
Oh, she was this MVP
Yeah.
of the episode by a mile.
Liked seeing Tatsu again. Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to say about the episode. It was a solid episode. It was Arrow delivering Arrow goodness.
Yeah, another kind of MacGuffin situation. What the Monitor has sent them on this mission. I just wanted to say that Laurel was superb in this episode. I think short hair Earth 2 Laurel Lance is the best version of a Black Canary, Black Siren we've ever had. And I wish she'd been in since season 5 or something, because she's really strong. Love the heartbreak. And it shows some real character development for that particular Laurel Lance, because she was such an absolute a-hole when we first met her. I can't remember, was it Flash when we first met her?
I think so, yeah.
There's been such a great character arc with this character that she genuinely wanted to go back and help people. I thought she was outstanding this episode, and her, John and Oliver, I think are a good team moving forward. So I'm looking forward to what I would consider to be better episodes coming along. And I'm not going to comment on 2040. The absolute dreck that is 2040. This is the last ever season of Arrow. So for all the Arrow reviews we do from now till it ends, I'm not going to talk about 2040, because all the time should be invested on a proper goodbye for Oliver Queen. And it's not even good. total fucking dreck, and I wish it wasn't here.
You know, for saying that you're not going to comment on 2040, that was an actual lot to say about 2040.
That's it for the rest of this calendar year. It had to be said once, and 2040 will not be acknowledged again. Any further comment?
No, I think that probably about sums up Arrow.
Okay, let's talk about Supergirl. This episode was called Blurred Lines, but I think it should be called Poor Judgment. Supergirl breaking the law to get Lex's diaries. Why would she do that? Goes against her character entirely. Why is the show turning us against the brainy Nia relationship? I would feel exactly the same way as Nia. I mean, that feels like they're drifting apart. Why would Kelly risk being fired from her amazing new job for a person from her past that she barely seems to remember, who turns out not even to be the guy? And then, I think we mentioned this earlier, the leading storyline, I would say so far, the John Jones storyline, where he's erased his and his father's memory of the existence of their brother. Lots of weird, out of character, peculiar decisions being made this week. Left it feeling like quite a muddle. For the first time ever, I feel like saying to you, I think Supergirl has a too big a cast, because there were 4 different stories in this episode, and it just felt muddled, and I wish they would just double down on what's working.
What I would like from Supergirl is a John Jones spinoff. That's all I want from Supergirl at this point in time. Change the name of the show, turn it over to the Martian Manhunter, and cause, I mean, for a while now, his storylines have been the strongest ones, which is unfortunate in a show titled Supergirl. I'll agree with you on the questionable decisions. I have no idea why Kara agreed to steal Lex's journals. I mean, yeah, she feels really guilty about lying to Lena, but it does seem like it's in a morally gray area that she would not go into. I mean, Kara's very black and white on her morality, and to steal something just is a step too far. I mean, I did think it was interesting that they talked a lot about, all of the various other illegal things that they do and why it's okay and when it's okay to do illegal things and when it's okay to break the rules, and she kind of pinned it on Alex a little bit, but I think, Alex was kind of right in saying there's a difference between doing a favor for a friend and national or planetary security is on the line. I love Nia and Brainy, and I really wanted them to be together, but they're just ruining it now.
Yeah.
And if they're going to have them break up so quickly, I don't understand what the point of putting them together was in the first place. I hate it when shows do that, where they get a couple together for a few episodes and then they break up and that's the end of it. It's just why? Why did you do that?
What did you make of the villain, which was basically Spider-Gwen, and she could transfer tattoos from herself?
That's a pretty cool idea.
I like that, yeah. It was so odd that it was a DC TV show, and she was firing spider webs out.
Yeah, concept was really cool. The execution was really cool. I think I would have liked it if they'd focused a bit more on that plot arc than some of the other ones.
Yeah,
they could have cut out Nia and Brainy, and because we're not even seeing Nia and Brainy do superhero stuff. No. I like them doing the superhero thing. I like Brainy kind of being out there and fighting with physics, and Nia coming into her own as a superhero, and it feels very reductive to take these two kind of really amazing and compelling characters and reduce them down to a romantic relationship.
I find it interesting that you used reducing them to a romantic relationship, because that happens so often in the Arrowverse, doesn't it? Nobody ever really excels when they're in a relationship. They just become quite tedious to watch. Get rid of the Nia stuff, get rid of the English journalist stuff, get rid of the Catco stuff, get rid of Sean Astin himself appearing and that Kelly stuff. Let's have Supergirl and Lena, because we have to. Let's have John Jones, and let's have the villain of the week. I would like a few less people, really, because the show's getting bogged down in minor storylines, and it just frustrates the hell out of me. Okay, let's talk about Flash. I'm going to try and offer some positives about Flash. I feel like we shit on it most weeks. I like the new Harrison Wells.
Tom Cavanaugh, in all of his various permutations, is inarguably the highlight of the Flash, always. So that's no real surprise.
He's kind of like an Indiana Jones, romancing the stone kind of character, looking for some kind of artifact. So that's interesting. I heard some good news this week. The new showrunner is dividing the Flash season into 2 halves. So it's going to be a villain in the first half and a villain in the second half. which I think is a really good idea because they can't sustain one villain over a whole season. I wish the Arrowverse in general would take that advice on board.
The seasons of all the shows that have done a season-long villain, we've all found it, like, after the first half, it sort of peters out and it doesn't work quite as well. So I think, that's probably a good move, having two separate villains.
Yeah. What do you make of Dr. Ramsey Rosso? He seems fairly generic, but I think he's a bit more watchable than Cicada, a bit more watchable than the Thinker. He seems to be a bit of a frenemy. He's worked with them this week, but clearly he has an agenda with dark matter. He's not terrible.
He's not, and I really enjoy the actor. He was one of my favorite characters on Heroes. Not quite sure what to make of him. Like, do we trust him? Do we not trust him? I mean, presumably he's going to be the villain for the first half of the season, but we've only really kind of been tantalized with various things about him, so I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see.
In general, I would say this episode is very much family drama.
Isn't every episode of The Flash just, like, I mean, hasn't Flash just sort of descended from comic book show to family drama?
Yeah, I think it really has. We met Debbie Dibney this week, a character that nobody needed to ever meet. A guy thinks she robbed his jewellery shop or something, I can't remember. Dibney had to try and show that she wasn't at fault. They had to go and do this caper, this heist, to take the CCTV footage with Cecile. So it was Dibney and Cecile for at least 10 minutes of the episode. We're trying to prove her innocence.
Which they did fairly easily.
Yeah.
Like, I just have to say, that whole reveal, because obviously the arrest was just to get Dibney and his mother together, and then it comes out that every time she's broken up with a guy, she's told Dibney that they've died. And it just, he's a detective, right? He's not a stupid guy. Didn't he ever once just think, it's really weird that all of my mom's boyfriends die?
He should have assumed she was like a Black Widow,
yeah.
I think, at least. So they're together, they've had this big family reunion. Crisis on Infinite Earth is like 7 weeks away. And this was probably a quarter of this episode, dealing with Dibney and his mum's issues.
I mean, the whole final scene was just Dibney and his mom talking about being open to love. Like,
he gave her the Book of Dibney, or whatever it's called.
An addendum to the Book of Dibney. 22 easy steps to be open to the love of your life. Like,
I mean, it doesn't really need to be anything else to be said, really. Caitlin did a whole thing, I've just started living, I don't want to die, because Barry sees her death last week. I want them to be doing stuff, not this
I think they should be more
melodrama
concerned with, like, this multiverse crisis than they are.
Yeah.
They don't seem particularly worried about it.
Last week when they went to Earth 3, I was thinking, yeah, this is what they should be doing with their time. But yeah, it's a lot of personal drama, and like, you're absolutely right, that is a staple of The Flash these days, and it's just so goddamn tedious to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Flash is my least favorite show in the Arrowverse now, which is a shame because it used to be one of my favorites. I used to, like, really love The Flash.
Yeah.
Then they just started going down this, like, family drama route, and that's all they focus on, and it's not that interesting.
Thanks for tuning in. We can be found on Facebook, we can be found on Twitter, we've got a Patreon, we've got a website. Go out and find it. See what we're up to these days, see all the new projects we've got coming out. We need a few more questions for our next Q&A session, so please ping those across. And yeah, have a good week.
All right, see ya.
See ya.